cat, it was a present from my brother. I read a lot of books, but I couldn't see between the lines. I'll have another cup of coffee if you don't mind. Well, her hair is as black as an alleyway, and it used to be red, and it used to be blonde. Truth is, her hair changes color all the time. I'll have another cup of coffee if you don't mind. I'll have another cup of coffee if you don't mind. Well, I'm staring at her shoulder, but it's not what I see when I hear two fellas fighting in the booth across from me. So I wipe away.
How you guys doing? We're live. Look at us.
We are.
Cheers. The beautiful thing. Cheers. Cheers this morning.
I got my Sam Antics mug, and you got your guitar mug.
And I got my dang guitar mug. Yes, I do.
So it's funny listening to our intro is Another Cup of Coffee, but I happened to catch the song as I was getting ready for the show, and I haven't really listened to it in a while, other than when we do this. And I was just remembering, I think that was on the first demo Cowboy Mouth did in 1992.
I think so.
Little cassette that we released. And I said something, Freddie, at the beginning of it. I forget what I said, Rocket Freddie or something stupid like that. And then we did it on Word of Mouth. And it was a good version. It was, Steve Walters was on bass back then in 93, I think, 92, 93. And he used to say, I like this song. It's like the Bertha Butt song. Because I thought of when he played his part. Boom, 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 Bertha Butt. And then Griff had a great, really blues part on it. But the version we're using now on our show is from when, like 5 Jazz Fests ago, when you were in town for Jazz Fest and you brought your mobile equipment over to my house. And I was in the process of wanting to redo Cowboy Mouth songs by myself because I wanted to do my own versions and have them in my own catalog. And I remember we recorded that one. I think I played the lead guitar, the rhythm guitar, and the bass, and you played drums. Or did you play bass?
I think I played bass. I'm trying to remember who did play drums, or did we just play drums? I can't remember.
You programmed
Yeah,
drums.
I think we programmed drums, yeah.
Yeah, you did, yeah. It sounds great. It sounds like drums.
It sounds like drums,
Yeah.
That Lynn...
Shamar, when he makes his records, he literally use drums on like 2 or 3 tracks, and then he'll program them himself on the rest, and then he'll play me the record and tell me which one's drums, which one's real.
And you're like,
I'll try and pick every time, and he'll be like, nope.
See, this could be part of Eddie's rant, because I'm sure Eddie could tell you which ones are real and which ones.
That'll be on Wednesday.
Yes, Wednesday for the Eddie rant. And we can ask him that very thing. First question.
I think 2 minutes with Ed, but Eddie rant sounds like we're setting him up. He has to rant. Well, he shouldn't have to rant.
I know, he doesn't want to rant. He doesn't want to rant. He wants to come on and be nice, he says. I don't believe it for a second, but...
2 minutes with Edward.
2 minutes with Edward, yes. I think it'll be fun. Edward. I think it'll be fun.
That's what I used to call him in the tour bus, and it reminded him of one of his aunts.
Oh, yeah?
Sound like my aunt.
Oh, that's funny. Let me turn you down a little bit. I guess I'm louder than you for once. Well, not anymore.
Well, you're the sound man, so no one here is surprised.
Right.
I have no comments, by the way. I did want to say, when we're technically ready, we're going to have guests, and Michael Service has informed me he'd be glad to launch it for us.
See, told you. He was all about it.
Yeah. Well, I hit him on his Facebook page. He really couldn't say no.
Right. There you go.
It was right out there for everybody to see.
Yes.
He was talking about being on a friend's podcast up in New York that talks about Broadway and the events of that area. And so I literally put on that post, if you want to go for a more low-end conversation and talk about music, travel, and shenanigans, you can join me and Mike for another cup of coffee. And he said, I'll join you once or 10 times if you like.
Nice.
Now, that was in a public forum. When I talked to him privately, he might go, no, man, that was just for show. I got 2 Tonys. I don't really need to, mess with your little podcast.
Right. He might be like on the side, be like, 1 minute, right? Paul, that's what you need from me, 1 minute. I'll be in
Oh,
and out.
as soon as he posted it, he turned to one of his assistants. I'm sure because when you have two Tonys, you have like multiple assistants, and God knows Michael's got an entire staff. And I'm sure he turned to one of his assistants and said, "That son of a bitch put me on the spot. Get me out of this."
Please get me out. So you're waiting
Yeah.
for the call from one of his people,
One of his people,
right?
because he's got people.
He's got people, of course.
He's that big. He's mega.
He's mega. So one of his people are eventually going to call us and be like, "Yeah, he's not available for that." Oh, between 9 and 10, he's never available between 9 and 10.
Almost never.
Right. It's
I
damn.
mean, you can check back if you like. But,
right. But he'll tape something for you if you want.
actually, one of the nicest guys I ever met in the business. He was incredibly instrumental in bringing Nine Lives to the attention of the serious people that develop plays in New York, and did what he could to help that happen before we all moved along. And but he's just one of the most generous guys that I've worked with as far as sharing his contacts.
Well, let me ask you a question about him because he, I'm just getting to know him since I'm back in New Orleans, and he's got a great little rock band. I've recorded him twice now.
Yeah, he grew up in West Virginia.
Gotcha.
So I mean, he's extremely trained and he's extremely cultured Broadway actor. But he's got his West Virginia roots and he's proud of it and he's very in touch with that music and that feeling and those people. He goes home a lot and so yeah, it's his bands. He loves country music and that's a great little band he's got with his cattle.
Right, no kidding.
I think he's got some locals in it now. It wasn't New Yorkers when his co-singer Kim K was still living in New York, but she's a New Orleanian now, and I think like Renee Coleman on bass from the Iguanas. I mean,
and Doug,
hacks,
yeah,
guys that have never done anything in the business.
And Doug's on drums. So she's got basically the whole Iguanas rhythm section, and then the fiddle player's great, and
it's not like those guys know how to make anybody dance. Right, the Iguanas,
right. So anyway, my thought was just like, I mean, he's a Tony guy, right? He's been on stage and Broadway and all that stuff. So, but was he always did you possibly make him go, a rock band? Maybe I should make him a little rock.
No. It's a funny thing about Michael and I. We both moved to New York around the same time. This should be our intro for him the day he comes on. But we both moved to New York around the same time, and I wanted to be a songwriter on The Secret. I wanted to be an actor. And he wanted to be an actor, but on The Secret, he was writing songs and he wanted to go and do that thing. So he would take his acting lessons and go over to the East Village and check out the scene, the anti-folk scene, the folk singers. And I would go do my gigs, and on my off nights, I'd sneak over and I edited at the Lee Strasberg Actors Studio 3 times before they finally went, "So you joining or what? What's going on?" You keep showing up. And I was like, "I'm not an actor, man." And I got scared and split. So we were on each other's periphery, and then he was down in New Orleans filming this movie called Cirque du Freak, a vampire movie, where he played one of the villains, Mr. Tiny, he had to wear a 500-pound fat suit in August.
Oh, man.
In New Orleans.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, you can ask him about that when he comes on the show. But his dresser, his wardrobe person is a friend, and Dana Embry, and she said, she got word to me that there was this actor in town who liked to sing and he was going to come check me out. So in my mind, I flipped it to young actor because I'm older than everybody when I'm playing. And I see this guy in the corner with a little fisherman's cap and a, jean jacket, and he's being real shy. And I go on a break, I go, "Hey man, you the actor from New York?" And my friend Dana, he's like, "Yeah, that's me." I said, "Well, you want to get up and sing?" Now I don't know. He has a Tony Award for singing, and I'm just an idiot from New Orleans. That's, inclusive. And I'm just trying to ask everybody on stage. And so I go, "You want to sing?" And he goes, "Well, I don't really do that kind of thing." And I said, "Well, do you write songs?" And he goes, "Well, as a matter of fact, I do." I said, "Well, why don't you get up and play one of yours?" And he went, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "All right, I don't do that either, but I guess I will." And he got up and he took my guitar and he turned to Shamar and he went, "I'm embarrassed to admit, but I don't really know what key this song is in." And Shamar went, "You just play, baby, I'll blow."
Nice.
And that was Michael's first experience playing with New Orleans musicians. And Shamar's one of the best you could do that with. And Shamar's always interested in learning new styles of music, so that Michael pulled out this really arty New York kind of rock stuff. He was, a little different than what Paul's doing. It's great. And I think he played 2 or 3, and we formed a friendship from there where I kept working with him, and then eventually I asked him if he would mind singing on Nine Lives and all that kind of thing. And I remember once finally, like, I had been introducing him as this young actor from New York who likes to sing at all my shows. And then I found out like a year into the relationship that he was my age. And I said, "Hey, man, I've been introducing you as this young actor from New York who likes to sing. And I found out you're my age. What's up with that?" And, well, for one thing, I didn't want to correct you because you kept calling me young.
All right. Would you have corrected him? Let's just put it that way. You'd have been like, okay, sure. I'll be the kid.
I would. I'm that kind of dope. I'm honest, and it's not a good business for honesty. Show business.
No, it's not.
It's a good business show.
I'll be honest. I put the wrong year that I was born for many years.
Did you really?
A lot of those
you lied about
music things?
Huh? You lied about your age when you were playing music?
Yeah, I did, definitely. Because we got old quick. You know, you run around 35 years old. You're like, nah, let's say I'm 30. I'm 30. That's old.
See, I just went with it, man. Because, by the time Cowboy Mouth formed, I was already 31. Right. And so literally I got the offer. I was working on a TV show in Boston as a production thing, making good money, was having a good time. And I thought, do I want to turn 30 playing rock and roll? I thought, I'm going to turn 30 either way. Might as well do it playing rock and roll. I like rock and roll. Came home and did it. But I remember one of the first things, some manager, I forget the guy's name locally, told Fred privately that he shouldn't be playing with Griff and I because we were too old and we didn't have it. And then that was right before the band took off, and we had a really hellaciously fun ride. But I was already in my 30s when it started. The audience was already younger than me, and I didn't want to try and hide it. The whole thing about me playing music was I was trying to find my authentic self.
Right, so you're not going to lie about who you did, right?
So I wasn't going to lie about who I was in the song or who I was in life, and I'm going to be the old guy.
There's nothing wrong with being the old guy.
I've been referring to myself as the old guy since Fred and I met when I was 23 and he was, 17. And when we got to be in our 30s or around late 30s, I said something to somebody in conversation. I said, "Yeah, I'm the old guy." And he went, "Man, you've been old since I met you."
Yeah, you're definitely that old guy. I was going to say just one last thing about Michael was his music definitely reminded me of that Athens scene that was happening in the 90s when we kind of came up.
Funny, we'll have to ask him about that because he played bass for Bob Mould.
No kidding. All right, so that does make sense. Yeah. It definitely feels like it comes out of that.
To me, it was that kind of sound, that sort of
Athens, Virginia, South Carolina. That like the Cat's Cradle kind of thing.
Active.
Right.
Yeah, I know the bands you're talking about. Those great bands. Because he's lived in New York for so long, I find with a real element of that New York art rock.
Right.
That Reed kind of ambiance and space within the lyrics and stuff like that.
His guitar sounds. You hear that New York influence in his guitar sounds, but like the songs and the melodies remind me of that.
His solo record is way more New York oriented. His Loose Cattle project, he really lets his country music roots
Maybe
flow.
That's what it is. It's because it's that project. It's more in line with that because it's not country. It's more of that South Carolina country.
That drive-by truckers country.
It's a different, different vibe.
He's a big fan. Yeah.
But I liked it a lot.
It's like cool modern country.
Cool modern country. So
not the glitzier modern country. In fact, I don't know if you read the story, but it's a great story that Ethan Hawke did in the Rolling Stone, an interview he was doing, and he's backstage with Chris Christopherson, Willie Nelson. For Willie's birthday celebration, and as all of Nashville is out, and Toby Keith, who just had a big hit with God Bless America, because at least I know I'm free, or whatever the thing is about dropping bombs and all this stuff. He's there, and so he walks in and he says hi to Willie, and as he's walking past Christopherson, out of the corner of his mouth, he goes, "And none of that lefty shit tonight, Chris." And Christopherson goes, "What'd you just say, boy?" He turns around and he goes, "None of that lefty shit tonight." And he goes, "You ever serve your country, boy?" And Willie goes, "Oh, don't get Chris riled." And he goes, and Keith goes, "What?" He goes, "You heard me, boy. Don't what me. You heard the question. You just don't like the answer. I asked if you ever served your country. The answer is no. You ever kill a man and then cash the paycheck the country gave you for doing it? No, then shut the fuck up." And he said, he walked away, and Keith goes, "Whatever," and he walks away. And he said, Chris Christopherson leans his head on the wall, still shaking from the adrenaline. And Willie looks at him, and Chris looks at him like, "Don't say a word." And he goes, he says, without taking his head off the wall, he goes, Willie, they're doing the country music what Pantyhose did to finger fucking.
Nice. Fucking Christopherson, man. The real deal.
Right? He just retired, you know.
Did he what? Did he really?
Yeah, his people announced he retired last year quietly.
Gotcha.
And then his family announced this year, like 2 weeks ago, that his son was taking over his record company, and they were going to try and reintroduce his music to the world, but that he would no longer be a public person.
Right. Good for him.
He'd had some memory problems in the last couple of years, but I mean, he's 84. Right. And he's literally a living legend. You know, he's one of the best songwriters, and you know, just all around. He's a genuine American folk hero,
yes,
man.
He is. Agreed. He actually, I just saw A Star Is Born for the first time, not recently. And I know maybe that's not one of his bigger, but it's, you know, one of the ones he's pretty well known for. And anyway, I don't know why. I was watching with my wife or something, but
I feel like I'm wasting my time with the live chat thing. I don't know how it works.
Yeah, well, don't worry about it. No one's chatting right now anyway.
Maybe that's why I don't know why I'm doing
so my View Halou says, good morning, guys. Other than that, nobody said anything. If you guys have anything to say, or you just kind of hanging out listening, we get it. But
anyway, he's one of my songwriting heroes. You know, just what an interesting life. He was a Golden Gloves champ. He was a Rhodes Scholar.
No kidding.
He was in the service. Yeah, and when he got out of the service, he decided he wanted to be a songwriter, and he went to Nashville and he got a job at CBS Studios as a janitor. And he was sweeping up studios after sessions and stuff, and got up the nerve to ask somebody if they'd listen to a song, and he was awesome. He was Chris Christopherson.
I heard the story of Willie's path a little while back, maybe a year ago, 2 years. Actually, with COVID, it's hard to tell how long ago it was, but it seems like it's a few years ago. But I finally saw.
With Willie's story, it's like, which story did you hear? Because there's a lot of them out there with Willie's path.
Well, this is kind of, you know, I mean, he started off in Nashville without really getting much attention, went to Austin.
So that part of the story skips a primary part of Willie's story. Willie, leaving Texas, he was already married, and he got a job. He needed a job. He had, you know, a kid on the way. Got a job as a DJ in Seattle.
No kidding. Okay.
And he made his own record, and he spun it under a different name, and made it into a hit in Seattle. See, he got noticed in Nashville, but not for the record, because they didn't know it was Willie Nelson. He got noticed because this DJ was having a hit action in Seattle. So he got a job as a DJ in Nashville, and playing his own record in Nashville, and went around to the jukeboxes, you know. And he was hanging out at Tootsie's, and he had Crazy on a single that he had pressed, and Patsy Cline's husband was in there drinking, and he goes, "Hey, that's your song?" And Willie goes, "Yes, it is." He goes, "Well, I think Patsy'd sound great on that." And Willie goes, "Well, I think she would too if she'd only hear it." He goes, "Hop in the car. Let's take it out. Let's have you just sing it for her. I got a guitar with me." And so Willie said, "I was so young and scared. I got in the car and he drove me out there." He said, "I wouldn't even get out of the car." And then he came out of the house and she said, "Get on in the damn house." And he went in the house and he played it for her and she recorded it that week.
No kidding. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's obviously, it's still around for her, right? I mean, Crazy's one of the,
yeah, I mean, yeah. Absolutely. It's one of the most played jukebox records in the history of popular music.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah.
That makes sense. What a great tune. I knew a girl that used to do a great cover.
I was quoted by so many people, you know, just Patsy Cline's version.
Patsy Cline's version is the version. I mean.
And then he proceeded to do what a lot of guys do. He signed a deal with a record company that didn't know what to do with him. They put him in a bolo tie and slicked his hair back. And he signed a couple of bad publishing deals. And eventually, he got out of his record deal. Well, he was a record deal, but he got out of his publishing deal because the publishing house with his contract in it burned down. And the legend has it that Willie was seen leaving the burning building carrying just his guitar case. Willie later said that there was no guitar in the case. He was carrying out his weed.
Nice.
So that's a legend. But anyway, he gave up on Nashville because he didn't voice it and sound like they wanted it to sound. It didn't work with strings. It didn't work with the traditional Nashville arrangements. And he didn't fit. And he went home and he bought a pig farm. And he was going to be a pig farmer. But he said he was a terrible failure at pig farms. And he hates pigs to this day. And he thinks about that pig farm every time he has a piece of bacon. And then he just built his own little studio, and he started sending his first demos back to the record company that still owned him uh, in Nashville, Columbia. And I saw an interview with the head of the label, and the first record he got was Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain for the Red-Headed Stranger record. And he said, I played it for the producer that had produced Willie's last couple of records. And I said, well, Mr. Hotshot Nashville producer, if Willie had sent you a song with just harmonica, bass guitar, and acoustic guitar, would you have released it like that? And he said, no, I would not have. And I said, and I wouldn't have let you. But you guess what? Going to be Willie's first #1 hit, just like that. And that's what it was. At 42 years old, he had his first #1 hit with just acoustic guitar, harmonica, and bass, just like he heard it in his head. Nashville never got that.
Yeah.
He went on and did it his way.
Nashville's still kind of stuck in some. Hey, we had some people. Kevin Wiseman said Con Praline is the flavor of the day. What you got?
Oh, I stick with CDM coffee and chicory, baby.
And then good morning, gentlemen. Oh, Mr. Blue's saying
that's Freddie Blues saying he likes both kind of music, country and western.
Country and western. Yeah, it is country music day.
He's a big Grateful Dead fan, so he likes his rock and roll too. So I know this about Freddie Blue. He can't con me with his upstate New York country twang.
No. I know. You know, people down here don't understand. You know, we like that old country music down here too. But I was going to say, you know, Nashville's kind of still in that same issue, you know, that they've always sort of been in. You know, it's like everything's more about trying to outsmart the consumer, you know, in their own way by pretending to be ahead of whatever the next curve is. But I don't know.
I always liked, well, first I'll say I always liked old country music. I learned more about it living in New York because when I first moved up there in the mid-'80s, and I'd say I'm from New Orleans, they go, oh, you must play some Hank Williams then. And I go, well, Hank's from Alabama, but sure, I know some Hank. I play some. I play whatever people will listen to, whatever will get me the gig, you know. But what were you saying before that?
Just about the modern country music, how it's kind of, you know.
Look, Jim McCormick, a dear friend of mine, when he heard this story, it made him sad because he's had a great 20-year career in Nashville, 15-year career in Nashville, and he's seen it work at its best. Yeah. But for me, I was in a rock band passing through. So rock band, strike one against you. And Cowboy Mouth, not the most artistic rock band, so sort of strike two. But I got meetings, you know, I got meetings several times over the years. What the guy behind the desk told me didn't change, just that the face got younger behind the desk as I got older. Right. So now it's after Katrina, and everybody's happy to give us a meeting because they want to help. And I'm looking at a guy who's 10 years younger than me, and he's telling me literally the exact same thing I've heard from 4 other meetings in Nashville. It's, I don't want anything fresh or original brought in my office. You hear what's playing on that radio? That's all I want you bringing in here. Right. And I just sat there with a smile plastered on my face thinking, so that's why mainstream country's gone to shit. Right. You're gonna, some poor young kid who just is dying to get in, and he'll do anything you say, not to bring anything fresh and original. You're going to purposely create homogenous music. Right. And that's not was the greatest thing about Nashville music.
No, and I'm not saying that they don't have people out there that are doing their own thing.
Oh, there's some real Nashville. There's some real country left out there. It seems there's a battle for the heart and soul of country music. Agreed. There's the guy with the makeup, and there's the guy with the heart. Right. So it's up to country who's going to carry the day, and they're the last genre making real money in the music business. The way we used to make it in the 80s, you know, where you got radio play. They still have radio play. Yes. They still have radio programmers that would come out to Darius Rucker's concerts when he took me on tour with him just to observe for a few days. And I was like, wow, radio programmers coming out and getting thanked on stage. We used to do that back in the 90s, you know. But they don't have that anymore in rock and roll. There's, you know, they have, what is it called? Live Nation, or what's the main radio? Clear Channel. Right. Everybody what to play, and there's no local guy you can go schmooze and say, hey, can you play me, and I like you and we're friends, and that doesn't exist in very many places anymore.
No, but country music was still selling records. They were one of, you know, rap music and country music were still selling records. But I have a feeling that, you know, it's just hard product. It's just a matter of time.
Now yeah, they're fighting upstream, and that's why they're fighting hard. But it's inevitable that the people that like country music will eventually like to stream, and streaming doesn't make musicians much money. Hard product made us at least some. Right. You know, the record company still kept the bulk of it, but hard product made some. And once again, like we've talked about, the hard product is a membership in the fan club. You know, that goes along with the T-shirt and the coffee mug and the baseball hat and the signed hard products. You can't get your stream shit signed.
Right.
Every bit of that makes you a part of a larger club, part of something larger than yourself that says, I'm cool in the way these guys are cool. And that lack of connection, that lack of physical connection. The virtual world, sure, we have plenty of connection, but we have less physical connection than ever. And that goes down to the hard product. Vinyls come back to a small degree, and I like that because the people that like vinyl are you people who really love music.
Well, that's the thing. You're vinyl now. It's vinyl. People that buy vinyl are the people. You're right. They're the big fans. They're the super fans, right? They're gonna buy your record, and whether or not they even play it. I mean, I have a vinyl player, so that's a beautiful thing.
Mark Membrilia says, current countryish Sarah Shook from Carolina, Eileen Jewell from Idaho. Her guitar playing is insane and really nice songwriting. So there you go. But that's pockets. We're talking mainstream.
Right? Because I mean, Chris Stapleton.
Sure.
You know, I mean, beautiful voice. First time I saw him play, I was blown away.
Brandy.
Right. I mean,
she's as authentic as I've seen in my life.
Jason Isbell. You know, I mean, there's guys out there that are doing real.
Who's the other guy that I like more than Jason? Sturgill
Simpson, right? So there's guys out there.
Real, just authentic passion coming out of every song and note.
Right. And still has that country flavor to it, you know. And
well, I like Jason, but he has a little bit of emotional distance of a survivor.
Right. I totally understand. I mean, it's funny about Jason. Some of his songs are like some of my favorite songs, and then some of them just pass by, and I don't.
As a songwriter, I find myself liking his stuff more when I'm not listening to him sing it.
Gotcha. Interesting.
Because when I listen to him sing it, like I say, there's the emotional distance of a guy who survived an awful lot of stuff. Right. And some part of him is just keeping a little bit of distance between him and the material.
Makes sense. And I think I even know what you're talking about. Thinking about a couple of songs and right off the bat, you're right. He's almost like a reporter sometimes. He's just reporting what happened more than being involved emotionally himself.
And I don't know, I'm not qualified to say whether that's to do with his sobriety because I'm not, that's not a part of my worldview. The AA thing is, but like a guy like Anders once, I remember watching Anders play and he was clean sober at the time. And watching him play the guitar is to see every demon that caused him to be an addict come out. They're all in there. And thankfully for him, he can release them through his playing. And I hope he does it as often as possible. I haven't seen him in forever, but this is a few years ago. And I just thought, watching him play, I thought that explains his substance problems. He's got all this in him and it has to come out or it has to be tamed in some way.
I know what you mean.
He's a force of nature when he plays. It's like, it's an incredible physical thing to watch him play.
I actually caught a little bit of his show Friday. I was doing a Pelicans game, and I'm just, for the first time in ages, roaming around on Facebook, and there's a live stream of Anders. He was doing his Friday night thing, and so I just kind of tuned in for a few minutes, and while I could, and man, just still, like you said, I mean, even the little thing that he's doing, he had a huge crowd, people watching him online, and doing his thing with his family around, clapping for him at the end of the songs. It was just this really, awesome. It was a fun kind of thing
he's one of those guys that when he plays, his essence, just really comes out, and it's sort of, to be in his presence when he plays, it makes me, it's awe-inspiring.
It is.
He's on the people like that for me. Harry Connick Jr., to be on the stage with Harry Connick Jr. playing, which I've had the pleasure of being on the side of the stage when he plays, it's awe-inspiring because there's not just music coming out of the man. There's literal energy washing over the room.
Me and Skeet, when we first, after Katrina, we wound up in Nashville pretty quickly. And Anders wound up there too. And I think he already had a place, right? He was writing up there, whatever. But anyway, he was in Nashville too. And so we wound up on a songwriting, one of those songwriting show nights with him. And, me and Skeet were doing it together as a duo, and then, go to whoever. But, me and Skeet, as good as Skeet is, we're a duo, the whole thing. Anders would do a song, and the freaking room just shushes down. After it's over with, everybody's just, you got to wait a few seconds for the room to sort of recollect itself before you can even go into the next song, because he's just, he's one of those guys who's got so much freaking talent, drives me nuts. I love him. Yeah. And I love to listen to him. I mean, he's one of those guys I love to listen to. I mean, shoot, I would I had offered at one point to do mixes for him for free just so I could hear his damn music. You know, I mean, he was one of those
Yeah,
guys that.
yeah, yeah. Well, we're blessed to be in a city that has several of them.
Yes, yes, and they're not all gone. I've been working with Brian Stoltz a lot, and he's been telling me all these old Art Neville stories, none of which I would want to tell here myself because I would get them wrong. But I'd love to have him on sometime just to tell some of those old Neville stories.
Oh, that'd be
He's
fun.
got so many of them.
The Neville brothers loom large in the legend of my life. You know, it's a really holy thing for me.
And Art was such a joker and such a character.
Yeah. Chris Finney used to tell me the funniest things about Art.
He's such a character. I miss him. You know, he's a good guy all the way around. You know, very.
He came to see my early band in the '80s, the Backbeats. I don't know who got him out. Maybe Jimmy got him out, or at Jimmy's Music Club. You know, I don't know who could have got him because he was sitting by himself. And it was before we got really popular. So it wasn't like there was 600 people in the place. There was maybe 150 people in the place. So it was kind of empty in that big club and sitting on the balcony by himself. And I just went back to him and after the show and he said, "Hey, come here, young man." And I went over there and he goes, "You write real songs. Keep doing it."
Nice.
Wow.
Well, I will say this to you, too, not to blow your head up or anything like that, but that was why Herman liked working with you so much. He was always, he'd come around and he'd go, "Paul, got anything new I could play on?"
I didn't know that.
Yeah, man.
I would have got him to play on so much more. I was so in awe of Herman, you know, that I was honored to have him play on those tracks on Between Friends and would have never had the cojones to ask him to do it again.
Funny part was is that he was looking for stuff. He was always looking for stuff. Remember that one we did that you said, what's his name sang it? Hootie and the Blowfish, Darius. Nothing There or
something here.
That was one of the ones you were talking about too, where there was two of them. Like the one with John Boutte is where he played all the different tracks, and at the end of it, we're like, wow, it works. I don't even know how it works. But that one there, he really enjoyed that one. I think we rebuilt the song for him because he came up with this groove, and we just replayed it. I think I played bass, you played guitar, and he played drums. We did it together.
Peter Holsapple played guitar.
Oh yes, Peter played guitar, and that's right.
Yeah. Really nice guitar part.
Speaking of which, man, we could go on and on about Holsapple's playing. That's another guy. If you guys aren't familiar with Peter Holsapple from the DBs and just his
I mean, if you're not familiar with Peter Holsapple or the DBs or the Mavericks, not the Mavericks, but the lesser known Mavericks, then stream them, buy them, check them out. It's a lesson in songwriting, a lesson in how to orchestrate pop guitar.
You know what I'd like to start doing in our description, guys? Maybe we'll start sharing some stuff in the descriptions, just things to check out that both me and Paul like, you know, either our own and other people's stuff. I can start putting links in the description.
Yeah, my brother Johnny told me that we should have description of what the show's about.
Yes, I know.
What each episode's about. And I said I would literally have to listen to the episode to know what it was about. Because the first episode, Mikey's like, "I got a script and here's some ideas." And you're like, I didn't even look at it.
Right.
I just went, we'll see what happens.
Right.
I mean, we've known each other forever. We can talk for 45 minutes.
Easy. We were doing it already anyway. That was the whole idea.
It would be nice to go back and be able to say this episode is about this and this, but I'll have to listen to them to see what they were about.
He's right. I mean, we should put a little bit of that kind of stuff in there, but even beyond that, like I said, sharing music and sharing playlists and stuff like that might be a fun thing for people to be able to, you know, and then we have something to talk about. Maybe people can be like, "Yeah, I didn't like that song so much. You know, why did you like it?" Or the opposite. You know, "Man, wow, I discovered something new. I'd never heard that before. That's awesome."
Well, I'd love to turn people on to some of the songwriters who helped me be a better songwriter along the way. You know, like my buddy Roger Manning up in New York City, not the Roger Manning who's in Jellyfish. Again, distinction. But Roger was part of the anti-folk movement. And
could you even find Roger stuff these days? Do you think you'd be able?
Oh yeah, he's available. He's like pretty hip on computers, so he knows how to get his stuff out on Bandcamp and all that stuff. And I recently, because I'm into vinyl. Allison's son gave us a record player a couple of Christmases ago, and I keep going to the $3 record bin at Louisiana Music Factory. And I asked Roger, "Is there any vinyl available?" Because you got to look for it online, and I did. I found his first one. I'm still looking for his second one, but I love listening to records on vinyl. And he was just such a great lyricist, such honest and beautifully poetic words that could still cut like a knife. So I'd like people to check his stuff out too. We should do a little playlist action.
You know, I did. You know, me and Skeet have made had conversations about some of your songwriting through the years, and I think Roger played a heavy influence on you early on because your early songs had had an edge, knife's edge to them. Like that was, you know, there was always, you know, as you got older in life and you became more satisfied with things, your songwriting changed. But early on, when you were still had some grievances, let's just say Jet Black and Jealous, there's a handful of grievances that you get out on that record, and I always enjoyed
Well, I mean,
that.
I think that there was a period of my life where I didn't write like that, but I think that period came back to my life, and I did write like that again. You write where you are. That's only the thing I know how to do.
Right.
Um, but yeah, oh no, there's no doubt that he and the anti-folk scene, Latch and Brenda Kahn and Michelle Schacht, all those great writers up there, uh, had an effect on John S. Hall, had an effect on what I thought lyrics should
Uh-huh.
be. It was a really cool scene, and they were all more educated than me, and they were already more experienced writers than me. So I had to play some catch up and get good fast. Coming out of the New Orleans rock scene and not really trying to be more than that. It was a great learning
So
experience.
while
Great
we're on the
time.
topic of Nashville, why don't you tell a story about the band that re-recorded Jet Black and Jealous as a song?
Well, it was a lovely, lovely experience. Right after it was 2006, so it was a year after Katrina. I got a phone call from a lawyer in Nashville, and I knew this because he said, "Hi, I'm a lawyer from Nashville, and I'm a pretty smart
You
fella, so I
picked
was
up
able
on
to figure
that.
it out."
Nice.
I picked up on it quick, and he said, "I represent a client who's a songwriter and publisher here in Nashville," and I said, "Uh huh." And he goes, he's a big fan of yours," and I said, "Uh huh." He said he likes your song "Jet Black and Jealous" in particular, and I said, "Uh huh."
Not giving him
He liked it
anything
so
back.
much.
Just
He goes, he liked it so much he wrote his own version that he recorded, and I went, "Uh huh." And he goes, and nobody was supposed to hear it, but somehow his manager got a hold of it and played it for Universal Records, and I went, "Uh huh." And he goes, "I know, lawyer from Nashville can't be good news." I said, "Not in my experience, but please continue." I said, "Well, this band from Texas, a young band, wants to record a song. We'd like to send you their version and see what you think, see if it's okay. We do it." And this is on the telephone back in the early, aughts when we still got on the phone with each other. And they sent it to me, and I called him, and he said, "What'd you think?" And I said, "Well, it was very different. They changed a lot of the words, they changed a lot of the melody, they changed the structure. It's really, really different." And I called him, and they go, "What'd you think?" And I said, "Well, do I still get paid?" And he goes, "Yeah, you get half." And I said, "I love this version. This is my favorite version of any of my songs that I've ever, including me. And please do it." And they said, "Fine." And then, like 6 months later, the lawyer called me back, and he said the band has decided to make it the title cut of their debut release on Universal Records. So the Eli Young's band's first record was called Jet Black and Jealous, and for 17 weeks, it was just a win-win-win for me. For 17 weeks, I was in the country music charts. I was making good money, and if I squinted my eyes enough, the guy with the brown hair looked a little like me, and I was young. It was just win-win-win. I love those kids. I don't know them, and I don't know their work, but I think they're really, really good.
great
And
judges of character, obviously, right?
well, they know a good song when they hear
Yes.
one, Mikey.
Yes.
Anyway, I'm very grateful to them. They continue to this day to be honest. During the pandemic time, they settled a lawsuit with one of the streaming services. Their lawyer did, for the publisher. I don't think it was for Eli Young, but anyway, they got me a pretty nice chunk of money in the middle of the pandemic. Like, I open my bank account and there's this big fat sum of money, and I go, "What's going on here?" And I looked and it came from them, and I called the guy, and he goes, "Yeah, we settled that lawsuit. You signed a document like 6 months ago. Do you remember?" And I go, "Yeah, I didn't know it was for that much though. I'll
Nice.
sign that sucker quicker."
Nice. Nice.
So they've been really honest. That's been my most positive Nashville experience. I'm glad you brought that up, given that I was doing a little whining from Nashville earlier about those meetings. But publishing meetings are tough at best, and those were exceptionally tough. But the one real experience I have there, is the Eli Young band doing my song, and there was nothing but transparency and honesty, and to this day, so many years later, 16, 17 years later, integrity in the payments.
Right.
And they're good people, and I wish they had recorded. I wish Scooter Caruso had done more of my songs
Right.
over.
Right. Yeah. Do as many as you want. We got a great question from. Let's see who put it in there. Philip Gooseman said, "Oh no, that Sorry, it wasn't Philip. Never mind. Somebody. Oh, it was. Sorry, it's Freddie. Freddie wants to know which 3 songs do you wish you would have written? If you can think of 3 songs that you've heard in your life that you wish you had written, can you think of that?
Boy, that's
I know it's tough to come off the top of your head, but it's a great question for just. It's hard to put it down to 3. I get that because
say, "Don't think twice. It's all right." My Life by John Lennon.
Yes.
And Diamonds in Your Hands by Alex McMurray.
Yes, it's another beautiful, nice. It's funny because it's usually for me it would be like little clever ones. I think "Come Pick Me Up" or something like that was one of the first ones that came to my head. Even though it's Ryan Adams, he turned out to be a real creep or whatever. You have to sometimes separate the art from the artist, which is always a tough thing.
I like that song. It's a good song. It's
one of those twisty things that I like. I like the ones that have the little, where a phrase means one thing at one point in the song, but the same phrase could mean something else later on. I enjoy those little, trying to think of some other songs off the top of my head.
I mean, there's so many to choose from. You have to have 3 songs that leaves out Sinatra, that leaves out John Butte, that leaves out so many.
Right.
3 songs is very limited.
Instead of that, what 3 songs maybe while we were young that really made you maybe want to pick up the guitar? Maybe you could pick it, even if it's a song, maybe something that.
Always Dylan. Like I remember being in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, which was an hour and a half by the R train to the Village, and watching a Dylan documentary on PBS on TV. And just halfway through, I had to stop watching, pick up my guitar, and go down the Village and find a place to play.
Right.
He made me want to play. He made me want to write. He made me want to be more than I was. Lennon had that effect on me. But I mean, so have writers that people have never heard of. Roger Manning had that effect on me. Alex had that effect on me. John Griffith had that effect on me. You had that effect on me. Being a better songwriter, being somebody writing a song that makes you go, man, I wish I'd written that.
That happens to me a lot too. You're right. I mean, there's songs all over the place that.
Plus, I don't think I was just saying to a friend this week, I don't think that the best thing belongs in the arts. What's the best?
Yeah, you're right.
There's a moment where this feels like the best, meaning the best song, the best moment in time. This is perfection. And it is. For that moment, however old or young you are, when that moment happens, that song happens, that feeling happens, that nothing could be better than this. Nothing could.
Right.
But there'll be another moment
Absolutely.
like that.
Not to mention songs sort of
happen to be in touch with the universe at that moment. And you went, this is the best song, and this is the best day, and the best person, and the best everything. You just open. Your heart and your soul were open to letting everything in, and you felt, I can't get better, and it can. Right. It's just you got to open up to that.
No, you're right.
Whether it's a song or a meal or walk or whatever.
I was thinking, with music too, it's about emotion so much and moods. So, there's all kinds of, what mood are you in could affect which song you like the best right this minute, because there might be something, maybe you're in the mood to go out and get some work done around the house. So you put on something upbeat that you may not.
There's a great quote from George Jones. He said, when you're happy, you listen to the music. When you're sad, you listen to the words.
There you go. So, oh my gosh, I was thinking of a song by him. What's that song, that famous divorce song that he did, or whatever? I can't remember the name of it now. But
Roses.
Yes. Oh my gosh, what a.
Look, when I would go to John Rankin's songwriting classes when he was still teaching, I'd go by once a semester to go talk to his people. I would always use that as a great example of just beautiful cinematic lyric writing. I can hardly bear the sight of lipstick on a cigarette there in the ashtray, lying cold the way you left it, but at least your lips caressed it as you packed. And the half-filled cup of coffee that you poured but didn't drink, well, at least you thought you wanted it. At least that's more than I can say for me.
Wow.
Man, that's just gorgeous and heartbreaking. And intelligently enough, leaves a lot to the reader's imagination.
Let you fill in the blanks, right? I mean,
If you can respect your listener's intelligence and paint a moment rather than try and give them the whole package, I felt this and I did this, give them a moment. There was a writer in the 80s named Raymond Carver, who I used to love. And the thing I liked about his stories, they were really short. And you'd read one of his stories, and they were so intense that it felt like you had walked into a party late and you had to leave before the situation resolved itself, but something intense was going on. and you picked up what you could while you were there. I always thought that's what a song was.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's just like trusting people that they can fill in the blanks. Just walk right into the moment. Give them the moment. Don't and don't give it away. Just let them figure out. Wonder what that means to me. Like I've had people come up and go, "Is this what this song means?" And I always go, "Absolutely,"
Right.
because it did to them. Well, it did to them.
Whatever it means to you is really what it means.
That's the important part.
Right.
That's the important. That's the connection. Is that it meant anything to you at all? You know.
Let's see.
Skeet wanted me to remind people that it was he who sent the Scooter Caruso people my way, which I didn't know or had forgotten. And thank you, Skeet, for sending the Eli Young's publisher my way, because it helped after Katrina. It's helped during the pandemic. It's helped in the years ensuing because they always pay me.
Right.
You know, they pay up.
I didn't know Skeet turned you on to that. That's amazing.
I didn't know that. Oh, I'd forgotten if I knew. Or thanked him publicly in all the stories I've told about it.
Except for this one, of course. But
in the future, if I ever do another show, I'll thank Skeet in the story that I tell.
At least in the title, maybe we could put another cup of coffee brought to you by Skeet Hanks. And
you know, the thing about your band, Path Boys, is it must have been almost like heaven for you to work with guys like Skeet and Eddie, who don't try and claim credit if you forget to mention them.
Who don't need attaboys, you know.
They don't need attaboys. They don't feel left out. They don't pout. They don't get guilty or mad.
Yes, I mean, they're just so easygoing. You know, you never hear any words about it.
I would have to say two of the easiest going band members that could ever remember.
Well, you know, that's what Xanax is for, really, ultimately, you know. No, they are definitely, you know, anybody who has a band out there knows, or any group of people that you try to point in the same direction, you know, you all know that it is a constant negotiation. You know, that's kind of
whatever business is, you know, that's just the way it is to get people to work together as a team.
Right. Even when they have the same vision, the way to get there can always be a little different, and you know, so that's just part of it, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you know, a little cooperation goes a long way.
Absolutely. You see what Skeet's there's here we go.
You can't go drawing Skeet into it now. He'll
Oh my God, he's all in now. He keeps commenting. Ladies and gentlemen,
he'll be a
on
guest.
The chat, Nate Skeet. We're gonna actually have him come out here at some point, hopefully.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're getting better and better at the concept of guesting. We'll get there, and it'll be simple.
Yes. And I was told Skeet it'd be great for Mondays, because hearing him on Monday mornings is pretty funny. Yeah.
Good. We meet up on Monday. You know,
Monday pick me up. You know.
We have our 2 Minutes with Edward on Wednesday, and we have our superhero wrap up with
Chicago Lou, right? So
Chicago Lou on Friday. So Skeet can start being our Monday dalliance.
Yes. So we'll probably wind up doing here, you know, in the next day or so, especially with you and I, is we'll run some tests so we make sure we got Eddie and Chicago Lou coming into our stream as easily as possible, so it doesn't ruin you guys' experience.
You know, Mike, you're hard on yourself. We had, I think, one bad broadcast where we froze and we had whatever. You know, it happens. These people live in the cyber world. This kind of stuff happens all the time.
Yeah, apparently it does. Apparently this is, man, what a beautiful day here. I was just thinking about Texas right now.
Such a relief to see something. I think about them every day, man. I can't imagine, like, what is it? Almost 2 weeks without a shower. Can you imagine?
Or just, you know, finding, oh my God, you know, the stories coming out of there. Just,
oh, it's sad, and your heart goes out to them for sure, absolutely. You know,
hoping that any listeners that are still in Texas, you guys are doing okay.
And to be honest, I mean, even in Louisiana, I don't think we've seen the sun in like 2 weeks until the last 2 days. You know?
And the temperature went up. I'm just running around without even a flannel on right now. I couldn't even believe it. It's like, oh, this is kind of
braver than me. I'm still, you know.
So Stinger says, speaking of perfect moments, my first day in New Orleans was my first day at Jazz Fest. I knew that was where I was supposed to be in the world.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of people that find that spirit at Jazz Fest that really, I mean, I've played a lot of festivals all over the world, and the spirit of Jazz Fest exists at very, very few, if any, other festivals. And people sense a feeling of community at Jazz Fest, which feels like home.
Mhm.
I think it's why so many people refer to it as, "Oh, now I'm home," when they get to Jazz Fest, because it doesn't begin at the gates. I used to live near there, and I love that time of year for Jazz Fest because long before the gates open, weeks before the gates open, the workers are on their way early in the morning, So I'm sitting out with my coffee and I'm watching people on bikes and on foot and they're smiling and they're going over to the fairgrounds to set this up. And the vibe is already building and it's a happy vibe. And then the people start arriving. And at first they're just checking in, but there's that excited vibe of checking in or catching up with friends or having a drink. And I'm sitting on my porch just strumming and watching it all build. And then it's the Jazz Fest day. And from the morning until the evening, there's this flow of happiness
Um,
on the streets of New Orleans,
yes.
It's an energy that permeates the entire city because the music just doesn't start when the fest gates open. There's brunches all over the place near the fairgrounds. And there's music everywhere. And then when the fest gates close, the party's really getting started because that's the all night thing.
Right.
If you want to go all night, which at one point in my life I could. And that feeling of music being accessible 24 hours and the energy it creates and the happiness and the joy that people feel at being connected to it all, it is the vibe of the city. It's everything that it's cracked up to be if you again open up to it and just let it wash over you. So yeah,
And the cultural
I'm
aspect is such a big thing. I mean, you look at some of these other festivals. Like I live near Bonnaroo, and I would work Bonnaroo all the time. And Bonnaroo is mainly just about those bigger acts. Yeah, you have some smaller acts and stuff,
I,
but
Quint has been devoted to making sure that it remains the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage
right.
Festival. So I think people have trouble sometimes with it not being just jazz, but the fact is it's New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival, and New Orleans implies a lot of music. I mean that would be counting out Fats and the Nevilles and all kinds of
Right.
people. So it's a cultural experience, and it's a tip of the hat to Quint to make sure that it has stayed so, uh, even after the flood, where the festival could have gone under.
Mhm.
So they took the sponsorship from Shell, which was controversial for some people, but it was either take the sponsorship or disappear, perhaps. And in doing so, they had to move to bigger acts because that was part of what happened. And so, for some people, they wonder why it didn't just stay like it was. Well, for one thing, nothing stays like it was. And for another thing, it had to change to stay
Mhm.
alive. But throughout all that change, he managed to keep the cultural aspects alive and even expand on them,
Right.
you
Right.
know.
I know that people get left out all the time, and people get snubbed, and I get it. But overall, you got to admit they're doing a great job of keeping as many people involved as they can here locally.
I think they really try. I really
I do
do.
too.
And I think that the year you don't get asked, it's a lesson in graciousness and gratitude, to reflect on the years you got to play it and be grateful for it. And to be gracious this year, knowing that, oh, well, I didn't get to play, but likely a friend of mine got a gig that didn't get one last year, and that's cool
Right.
too. You
Right.
know, you know, I, I think they do their best. And I think it's tough because very few cities are as loaded with as much quality talent as we have in New Orleans.
Agreed.
So he says, "Well, I think I deserve it." They're right.
Right.
There's plenty of people that deserve it.
Right.
There's just so many spots, and they do literally the best they can. And I'm sure they're as torn by it, or more torn by it, than the musicians realize themselves.
Absolutely. And then look, this day and age, sorry musicians, but you got to start building up an online presence because that's where they're going to go look for you. If somebody wants to book you or something, they want to go see, how popular online.
Well, that's part of it. I also think that somewhere along the way, long before the young people today, our generation, even older than our generation, it somehow went from the feeling of making great music to the feeling of if it doesn't sell, it's not great music.
Right.
And that's simply not the case. You make the music because it feels good to make the music. You hope as many people hear it as hear it. You're happy that anybody hears it. You hope it gets you gigs. You're happy it gets you any gigs. There's a time when you're young and impatient where you get pissed off about not getting this gig and that gig. And I tried to go through that time in my life as quickly as possible because we had so many other cool gigs.
Right.
Cowboy Mouth gave me unforgettable experiences. I, stood in front of 50,000 people at Midtown Music. And that's a feeling I'll never forget in my life. Griffin, it's just something we've talked about is people as far as the eye could see. I played the shittiest shitholes,
Hmm.
but all of it makes you who you are. It's like Willie Nelson, who's 87, about to turn 88, got interviewed this weekend on Sunday morning. And they said, "Is there anything about your life you changed?" And he goes, "Well, thought about that a lot and been asked that a lot. And, everything I did in my life got me where I am. And I like where I am. So I don't guess I'd change anything if it would change where I am."
So that question back to you, same answer? You going to quote Willie Nelson on that?
Regrets, I have a few, but then again, too few to mention,
Right.
I made choices when I was young out of fear, but so did the people I was partnering up with.
Mhm.
All damaged individuals. That's how energy works. We were damaged individuals who sought other damaged individuals to make us feel at home and loved. And the result of that is it's not going to last too long. You're either going to heal and move on to more healing spaces, or one or more of you will heal and move on to other people in healing spaces. It was a wonderful time of adventure. It was a wonderful time of learning. And one of my meditations, as we've talked about, is forgiveness. That's the final one. Like, be kind, you learn. Just getting older, you learn, I should have been kinder.
Mhm.
I mean, I learned that one a long time ago. In my 40s, I learned, I wish I'd been kinder. Now, it took me through most of my 50s to learn to actually be kind. But I didn't learn in my 40s that I should have been kinder.
So you can at least look back on it and go, well, I probably could have handled that differently, and I might handle it differently.
I was young. I was impatient. I came from a place of, you know, I grew up in a very intense setting, and I was an intense person, and I could have been kinder.
Mhm.
You
I
know,
totally understand.
someone's wronged you. It doesn't give you the right to wrong them back in a unpleasant way. All that kind of stuff. But anyway,
Chicago Lou told us he'll be ready for Friday.
I know you personally are looking to the Wanda portion of the superhero wrap up, but there's a lot going on in the superhero world.
Right.
So, Chicago Lou's going to be there to help us
Zack
through
Snyder's got his version of Justice League coming out, so we have a lot to talk about.
He's up on all of it. He's got opinions on all of it. He's the person I look forward to most going to see the latest Marvel movie or whatever when I'm passing through New York. Go to a movie with Luis and see.
We were already kind of going long today anyway, but I did.
We did. We went an hour again. How did it happen?
It just kind of starts to happen.
We have to stop this, Mikey. People aren't interested in this.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, though, real quick, this thing that happened to music in the 90s is starting to happen to movies and stuff now.
I know.
Where everything's switching over to streaming. And
that's another topic for the day, because we are at the end of the show today.
That's definitely, and, a lot of us, especially here in New Orleans, there's a movie industry here, television industry, as we know some of our friends.
Mike, I don't know how the listeners feel about it, but it speaks well of our friendship that an hour goes by in the blink.
Yes.
So I enjoy it. I say cheers to you.
Cheers to you too, and we will get back to work on Wednesday. You guys look for your thing.
And with 2 minutes of Edward.
Yes, we'll have some 2 minutes of Edward. And so now I'm about to play our outro music, and thank you guys for tuning in again. It's fun to have Skeet here and whoever else came. Thanks, guys. Philip, all you guys, have fun. See you next time.
Well, I used to keep my money in a cookie jar. It was shaped like a cat, it was a present from my brother. I read a lot of books, but I couldn't see between the lines. I'll have another cup of coffee if you don't mind. Well, her hair is as black as an alleyway, and it used to be red, and it used to be blonde. Truth is, her hair changes color all the time. I'll have another cup of coffee if you don't mind. I'll have another cup of coffee if you don't mind.